here and 7. So 7 is the first part of that road, 8 is in the middle, and then cave is 9. Yeah. So how do we move from stage 9 to Shamatha? He says the following. Following the realization of the 9th attentional stage, you are primed to achieve Shamatha. The 9 preceding stages entail many incremental changes, but the actual accomplishment of Shamatha involves a radical transition in your body and mind. You will be like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. This shift is characterized by specific experiences that take place within a discrete, relatively brief period of time. According to accounts from the Indo-Tibetan tradition of Buddhism, the first sign of the achievement of Shamatha is the experience of a sense of heaviness and numbness on the top of the head. This allegedly happens to anyone who experiences this transition, regardless of the specific method followed. It is said to feel as if a palm were being placed on the top of your head. It is not unpleasant or harmful, just unusual. Something remarkable must be taking place in the cortical region of your brain at this point, but so far no one has monitored the brain correlates of this shift using magnetic resonance imaging or an electroencephalograph. This physical sensation on the top of the head is symptomatic of a shift in your nervous system or network of vital energies that is correlated with gaining freedom from mental dysfunction, a general state of mental imbalance characterized by stiffness, rigidity, and unwieldiness. Consequently, you achieve a state of mental pliancy in which your mind is fit and supple like never before. From a contemplative perspective, when the mind is dysfunctional or prone to laxity and excitation, it is hard to generate enthusiasm for healing the afflictions of your mind, or for devoting yourself to virtuous mental activity. Once you are free of such mental dysfunction, you can focus your mind without resistance on any meaningful object or task. So again, that's symbolized by the person riding on the elephant of the mind. We can direct our attention to whatever we want without any resistance whatsoever. And such a mind is now said to be fit or serviceable. This is the key to achieving optimal mental performance. Following this sense of pressure on the top of your head, you experience the movement of vital energies moving in your body. And when they have coursed everywhere throughout your body, you feel as if you are filled with the power of this dynamic energy. You are now freed of physical dysfunction, so your body feels buoyant and light like never before. And so that's symbolized by the person flying through the sky. Both your body and mind are now imbued with an exceptional degree of pliancy, which makes them remarkably fit for engaging in all kinds of mental training and other meaningful activities. When physical pliancy initially arises, the vital energies catalyze an extraordinary sense of physical bliss, which then triggers an equally exceptional experience of mental bliss. This rush of physical and mental rapture is transient, which is a good thing, for it so captivates the attention that you can do little else except enjoy it. Gradually it subsides, and you are freed from the turbulence caused by this intense joy. Your attention settles down in perfect stability and clarity. You have now achieved Shamatha. Doesn't sound too bad. There's one more diagram here at the top though. And here we see now the flame has come back, and I think there was a question about that the other day. And now we have the meditator on the elephant of the mind, and in their right hand is a sword. This is a sword of wisdom. So this is symbolizing the Vipassana practice, the sword of wisdom to cut through ignorance and distorted view of reality. And we have these two numbers here for that, describing that, 32 and 33. If we go over the page, it says, the root of samsara is cut by the union of shamatha and vipassana observing emptiness. Equipped with mindfulness and introspection, seek the correct view of emptiness. So what this is saying is that on the basis of shamatha, we can really effectively engage in the vipassana practice. to investigate the nature of reality, to come to penetrate the nature of reality, to come to realize this emptiness, that nothing exists independently. And through that realization of emptiness, that wisdom of emptiness will cut through ignorance, mental afflictions and suffering. Now, what this doesn't mean is that we first need to achieve shamatha before we start practicing vipassana. But what it does mean is that if we want our vipassana practice to get to the point of fully penetrating reality, of having a direct realization of emptiness, then we need a very stable and clear mind for that. We need the mind of shamatha. And on that point, we can talk about going through 3 stages in any practice. And here I like to use the Tibetan words because they're very short. Go, nyam, tok. Go in Tibetan means intellectual. So of course for any practice we need to have an intellectual understanding of the practice, otherwise we don't know what we're doing. So in Vipassana then, if we want to come to realize this emptiness, we need to have an understanding of what do we mean by emptiness? What is this idea that things are independent, lack independent existence? But of course, merely gaining an intellectual understanding of something is not really going to directly help us in our life, because our behaviour is not driven by our intellectual understanding, it's driven by our instinctive habits. And our instinctive habits are really telling us that things around us exist independent of us. And so that's how we relate to things, as if they really did exist independent of us. So merely having an intellectual understanding that they're not independently existent itself won't really change anything. What we need to do, of course, is bring this intellectual understanding into practice. We need to internalize that and come to experience in meditation the fact that things are not independently existent, this emptiness. And so that is the second stage, that's nyam. Nyam means taste or experience.
Nyam.
Nyam, yeah.
It's good for day.
So, taste or experience. So we sit down, we meditate, we have a little taste or experience of emptiness in meditation. And depending on how strong that experience was, that experience can still affect our mind for some time after the meditation. Maybe a few moments, a few minutes, a few hours, maybe even a few days. And while that experience of emptiness is affecting our mind after the meditation, we're going to be more experientially seeing things as interdependent than as not independently existent. So what you'll notice, of course, is then mental afflictions will be much reduced, and you'll find that you'll have less attachment to pleasant things, less aversion to unpleasant things, and also you'll find naturally more connection with others, so more naturally loving kindness and compassion for others. But that'll wear off and we'll go back to our normal habits, attachment to pleasant things and couldn't care less what happens to them and so forth. So what we're wanting to do here, of course, is we want to stabilise that experience so it's longer lasting. So that is the third stage called tok, or realisation in English. So a realization is then a stable meditative experience, meaning that that experience will stay with us after the meditation. It won't just sort of disappear quickly. To have a realization of emptiness, we need a very stable and clear mind. We need the mind of shamatha. So if we want to, of course, if we want this vipassana practice, emptiness, to have benefit, we need to meditate and have a little taste. Otherwise, simply intellectually understanding that things are interdependent and that probably not going to change our life at all. But if we meditate and start to have some experience of this, already then we're going to notice some changes in our life. But we want to then go from here to here. We want to bring that experience into realization. To do this, we need shamatha. So that's what it's saying here on number 32. It says, the root of samsara is cut by the union of shamatha and vipassana observing emptiness. So if we want to start to cut ignorance and mental afflictions, we need realization, so we need shamatha vipassana unified. We need vipassana based on shamatha. So that's what's being said here. I think that's about all I wanted to talk about in the chart. So is there any questions about anything on this 9-stage model? Yeah.
At some point, I think stage 5, the monkey is behind the elephant. Is there a particular reason for that?
Probably because now the meditator has, why in the order of the monkey and the elephant.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably to do something with which of the two, laxity or excitation, is more easily tamed at those stages. But I haven't seen an explanation of that. So we see the monkeys grabbing the tail of the elephant. So it may be, because the elephant is the mind, and the monkey is the discursive thought, conceptual thought. So up until stage 4, the monkey's gone on ahead, but now from stage 5 it's behind, meaning maybe that now we have much more control over that. Maybe number 18 gives us a hint, because where the monkey's grabbing the tail of the elephant, we have number 18. It says, the potential for excitation to arise prior to meditation has weakened. So that's a little bit what I was saying, I think, is that the power for the monkey to disrupt us is now dramatically reduced, and that's why he's behind instead of in front. And that's what I think number 18 is sort of indicating.
Here about the role of the rabbit.
The role of the rabbit.
The symbol of the rabbit.
Well, the rabbit.
Right?
Well, it's subtle laxity.
So what's the difference? The
Well,
black color is dullness or laxity as well. The black
yeah. So in fact in this chart over here, which I got from Alan Wallace's book, if you look down the bottom here, he actually divides laxity and excitation, or dullness and excitation, into 3 levels: coarse, medium and subtle. So he makes a finer distinction of the levels, and you can see from his description what they mean. But if we just use that fine level of 3 levels is not really so evident in this. There's only the 2, is that the black colour of the elephant and the rabbit is the subtle. So what it's saying here, what's indicating here, is that we need to, from stage 3, we need to recognise subtler levels of dullness. That if we don't, we won't progress. That's all. So that's what it's indicating.
But the rabbit itself is also sometimes black and sometimes.
Yeah, but the fact that there's less black is meaning it's becoming less a problem. And then, of course, we see it disappear after stage 5. On stage 6 onwards, it's not there, which is indicating that it's not a problem anymore.
And it doesn't appear before stage 3
Because coarse dullness is the big problem. Falling asleep is the problem. Stage 1 and 2. So the rabbit's there, but it's not. We have much more serious things to deal with at stage 1 and 2. That's why. But from stage 3, we need to start to pick up these more subtle levels of dullness to go further. That's why it's introduced.
The symbols of the 5 senses.
Yeah.
Why are they here, and
Why are they in that particular order? Or
is the location where they are important?
I don't know. I mean, when and this is just pure speculation from my part, is often when the 5 senses are listed, you first have visual, sound, smell, taste, tactile. That's the order that they're listed in the texts. Pretty well always, that order. And I've seen one explanation that says, well, why do you list them in that order? And the answer in that text was, that's the sequence they come in the body. That the highest is visual, then smell, then sound, smell, taste, and tactile. And so we have a similar order here. So it could be just that same order.
Okay, but why are they here in this?
In the diagram?
Yeah.
Oh, they're in the diagram because number 10. Number 10 next to the bowl of fruit. If we look at number 10, it says excitation has the 5 sense pleasures as its objects. So it's to highlight that the most common form of distraction is we're pulled away by pleasurable things, sense objects. That's the reason.
You said about that Alan Wallace recommended 4 first stages.
Well, as one option. He also said pick an object and use it the whole way. Or another possibility, to use the breath for the first 4, and then observing the mind up to stage 8, and then stage 8, 9, shamatha, resting in awareness.
It says in the 9 stages leading to shamatha, in stage number 7,
Yeah.
pacification of attachment, melancholy and lethargy.
Yeah.
What does it mean, pacification of attachment?
It means that it's stage 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means that the attachment largely becomes dormant.
Pacified is...
Pacified, it's not eliminated, just pacified means sort of like kept under control. It's not really a problem. Yeah.
Why the feel?
Another part? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, maybe just a thought. Why not stop at stage 7? It sounds pretty good.
Why not stop at stage 7?
Yeah. I'm trying to negotiate.
Well, because actually, I think I didn't read out what Alan Wallace said here. On stage 7. Let's read what he says for stage 7. It's on page 117. Yeah. The power by which the 7th stage is achieved is enthusiasm. The practice itself now fills you with joy. It is this that motivates you to continue in the practice, meeting the increasingly subtle challenges ahead. Having overcome the medium degree of laxity, subtle laxity remains, in which the object of mindfulness appears vividly, but your attention is slightly slack. No one but a highly advanced meditator is even capable of recognizing such a subtle degree of laxity. It is detected only in relation to the exceptional high degree of clarity of which the trained mind is capable. Subtle excitation also occurs from time to time, so that's the monkey's still there, and there's a little bit, there was subtle excitation. Subtle laxity is the little bit of black on the back of the elephant still. Subtle excitation also occurs from time to time, so that's the monkey still there. As recommended previously, when laxity sets in, you arouse your attention, and when excitation occurs, you loosen up slightly. At the 7th stage, these subtle attentional imbalances are swiftly recognized due to your finely honed faculty of introspection, and they are easily remedied. The Tibetan word gom, usually translated as meditation, has the connotation of familiarity, and that is the quality of your experience at the stage of fully pacified attention. You have become highly adept at balancing and refining your attention, and the rest of the journey to the realization of shamatha is all downhill.
I think I'm stopping there. That sounds really good.
What is this world down here? Is he selling something already? He's a professor in America, happily married. What is this? I'm sorry.
In order to have a feeling of emptiness,
An experience of emptiness?
experience of emptiness,
Right.
you have to stay until stage 9?
No. So the question is, do we have to be at like stage 9 or something to have an experience of emptiness? A couple of things is, one is, of course, on the way to shamatha, there's no experience of emptiness. This is shamatha practice. Emptiness is vipassana practice. And this doesn't mean we have to achieve shamatha first, then we go to vipassana practice. What it does mean is that if we want to have a direct realization of emptiness, we need shamatha. But now as a beginner, we can start vipassana practice and meditate on emptiness, and we're going to do that day after tomorrow. We're going to do a little bit of meditation on emptiness. And we may have a taste or an experience of emptiness. And it may have quite a strong impact on our mind, but it'll wear off very quickly. So, if we really want to start to have some experiences of emptiness, then I think it's important to put some effort into the shamatha practice. Because if we're sort of haven't gone anywhere along the shamatha path, and we do this investigation of emptiness, I think you're going to find it very difficult. Because we're talking about very subtle investigation. And if our mind is not very clear and focused, it's going to be very difficult to do that. It would be like trying to find a person in a room and your vision's not very good and it's dark in the room. I mean, it's like not much is going to happen. So the shamatha is to make the mind clear and sharp and focused. Meaning then if we apply that to the investigation, we can really have some decisive result. So again, it's the analogy I think I brought up earlier of, in Vipassana we're being like an empirical scientist. We're running an experiment. We're trying to to discover something. But the equipment, of course, we're using is the mind. So if the equipment is faulty, you can run the experiment many times and get many different results. So the equipment is, to make it functional, is shamatha. So the more that we can make the equipment function better and better and better, the more likely we are going to have some sort of valid experience.
And in order to follow from one stage to another, do we have to do something specific, or it comes by the time of experiencing?
From one stage to another here?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, as we said, we quality over quantity, but as we move along here, we're going to have to increase the duration of the meditation sessions. So, at the beginning, we're maybe doing 15 or 20-minute sessions or so forth. By stage 4, probably our session is about an hour. Then we saw, I think, stage 7 or so, 2-3 hours. Stage 8, 9, 4 hours, like that.
Full-time job.
Sorry?
Full-time job.
Well, we need to put some effort into this, because sometimes people ask, well, how long do you need to achieve shamatha? And then if you read some of the historical texts, you'll see them say things like, if you're someone of dull faculty, it'll take you 9 months. Medium faculty, 6 months. Sharp faculty, 3 months. But I think that's a little bit over-optimistic, particularly for us in our modern society. And actually in his book, Alan Wallace, he comments about this, and he says that modern studies show that if we want to develop expertise in any high-level technical skill, including playing piano or whatever, 5,000 to 10,000 hours is required in any field. That's the norm. That in any field, if you want to develop expertise, you need to do 5,000 to 10,000 hours of practice. So he's suggesting maybe it's something similar to that here. He's just saying that as his idea.
How much is it in retreats?
12 in a mountain.
What is the power of familiarity?
Familiarity, it means to become more and more familiar with it. So the power of familiarity, then it's very familiar and it becomes very easy then. Any other questions? Okay, then we'll leave it there. So before we do the Shavasana, just a few comments again about tomorrow. So in tomorrow's program, again, we're going to be in the Shamatha part. Again, you get to choose your object. So again, you've got a couple of options for tomorrow that if there's a particular object that you really have a strong connection with and you use that today and you want to continue to use that tomorrow, that's fine. If you want to shift to another object tomorrow, that's also fine. So, you know, there's a number of different options there in terms of the object you want to use tomorrow. So we're going to do the similar program in the morning as we did today. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, I'm going to move from the compassion wing to the wisdom wing. So we're going to, in the session after lunch, we're going to enter into the wisdom practice. In particular, I want to look at the wisdom practice at the foundation level. So what we find in the modern day Theravada traditions, we briefly touched on these 3 marks of existence of impermanence, suffering, no self. So we're going to have a look at that and do a little bit of practice regarding to that. And then tomorrow evening, I want to then look at the model that's normally used in the Theravada traditions in terms of the stages of progress in the Vipassana practice. And they often have a 4 or 8 stage model in how to know we're moving along the Vipassana practice to the goal of Nirvana. So we're going to have a look at that model tomorrow evening. Okay, so that's the program for tomorrow. So let's finish with the Shavasana meditation.